Good morning, guys. Today we are going to begin the fifth chapter of history, that is colonialism and tribal societies. So, in this chapter, we are going to begin with the first introduction, that is tribal communities in the 19th century. So, if you take 19th century, East Indian Company, English East Indian Company, they started grabbing a large territory of India under their control to make it into their empire. So initially, their influence was very limited to the trading posts, that is the coastal areas and the urban areas, cities. Okay, and then later, after the development of transportation, they started to influence the interior part of India. So in that cases, it includes the rural areas as well as the tribal areas, that is forest areas. Apart from that, the policies of British East Indian Company, they also affected the tribal people a lot. So if you take tribal people, they were basically very poor and they had very negligible income and they have very limited resources. And when these land revenue policies and other policies implemented by these Britishers, they were enforced on these tribal people, they were not able to tolerate. And mainly the land occupation, that is encroachment of territories into the tribal areas by the Britishers, were not accepted by the tribal people, and that created a cultural and identity setback for the tribal people, and that becomes the reason for the revolt of the tribal people against the British regime. And then even though these British people, they created many constructive things like railways and broadways, hydropower projects, and they also started mining. So all these things, they have to clear the forest. So when they want to do a construction, every time they have to clear the forest, this thing actually against the mindset of the tribal people, because these tribal people, they were totally dependent on the forest resources and the forest. So when these British East Indian Company, they are clearing the forest, this one actually created the confusion and conflict among them, and the tribal people, they started fighting against this British East Indian Company. So now the tribal revolt. So these tribal people, they were affected in all aspects, like social aspect, religious aspect, economic aspect, every aspect, every sphere. These tribal people, they were affected by the British East Indian Company. Now, let us see about the revolts. The first one we are going to see about the revolt in the Chota Nagpur region. So, this Chota Nagpur region, it includes Odisha, Bihar, Jharkhand, and Bengal. Okay. So, in these area, there are n number of tribal peoples. So, in that, the first tribal who were revolt against these Britishers in 1820, it was the Kolarian tribe. This Kolarian tribe were otherwise called as Kols, and these Kols, they actually resisted the encroachment of the Britishers into their territory, and actually they were very powerful, and they offered a very stiff resistance to the strangers who were entering into their territory. The same way they resisted the British East Indian Company, and they gave a tough fight whenever these British people are trying to enter into the territory of the Coles. But by 1827, these Britishers, they created a pass, or they brought a break in the resistance by killing n number of Coles, and also banning their villagers. By the meantime, in 1830, this in this Chota Nagpur plateau, the other tribe called Mundas, they started the revolt, and they started inviting other tribal mans to join them to fight against these British people. The reason for that is the another revenue for policies which was implemented over this tribal people. And actually this tribal policy was introduced for the cultivators who are cultivating in the tribal areas. And apart from that one, next one, the judicial and other revenue laws which was implemented over these tribal people became the reason for the uprise of these muntas. and these Mundas were joined with the Kols, and the immediate reason for the revolt, created by these Kols and Mundas was that is these Britishers actually killed a number of tribal men, and they burnt the villages of these tribal people. So that became the immediate reason for their uprise, and somehow these Britishers managed to suppress this tribal revolt by March 1812, and but it is not completely suppressed. One more time they rose in revolt by 1836 and 37, and finally they were suppressed after that. And then in 1846, another tribal group called Kondas, who are living around Odisha of Chota Nagpur region, they actually afraid of these British people. They might claim their territorial area, and they might convert them into forced laborers. They may leave heavy tax over them. All these kind of suspected thinking, they created fear among them, and that becomes the reason for their revolt over the British people. And Kondas gathered a big army, and they attacked the camp of Captain Macpherson, and almost 170 men of the camp they surrendered to the Kondas. And these Kondas revolt were suppressed by these Britishers by 1848, and then these British people they learned how to handle these tribal men's, and this Kondas revolt was suppressed by releasing a exiled Konda chief, and this Konda chief he went back to his tribal men, and he settled down the revolt and brought peace among the Kondas.